Hello. This is a follow-up video to my unboxing video for the Wayne Goss first edition eye brush set. Last time I unboxed the brushes and we took a closer look at them, and then today I wanted to go through and do some comparisons for you against the other brushes I have in my collection. Please be aware that this was filmed on the same day as the unboxing, so at the time I had not used any of these on my eyes. These are like very, very first impressions. These are just straight out of the box impressions, so please do not take any of these opinions as finalized in any way. And if you do want my full and finalized opinion, I would recommend waiting for my follow-up videos once I have a chance to use these, and also once I have a chance to wash these brushes. So let's go ahead and get into the comparisons. I'm going to go with some brushes that I want to compare to these now. All right, so I think these are all of the brushes that I wanted to pull out and show you in comparison to the new Wayne Goss brushes. So let's start at the beginning again with the E1 brush. So this is maybe a more useful brush than I thought it would be, but only time will tell. I don't typically like brushes that are shaped like this, that are kind of blunt in this kind of way. Oh, you know what? I think I have one more brush I want to show with this. And it has sparkles all over it. So let me take those off a little bit. There we go. So what do I have here to compare it to? So I have the Worker One that I just put down, Jumbo Concealer, and then the Rephr 33. So when I first opened this, the first thing that I thought of was the Sonia G Jumbo Concealer. These two brushes, I think, have like somewhat similar brush heads, or at least in my collection. The Wayne Goss one does have a little bit longer bristle, and I think that the Sonia G Jumbo Concealer is going to be quite a bit stiffer. Yeah, and this one has a good bit more fluff to it and just more glide. And also the Jumbo Concealer is it's pretty blunt. It doesn't come to a point or anything. It just kind of like cuts off at the top. Like it's rounded to it, but the very top of the brush is pretty flat. Whereas the Wayne Goss E1 brush, it comes to a little bit of a taper. So I like that. I like that this has more fluff. I like that it comes to a taper. I still don't know what I'm going to do with it, but it feels really nice. I don't know if I'd want it for concealer. This isn't the shape that I like for concealer. And I think this would be too fluffy. I definitely would use this more for powder, but I think that of pretty much all Fude, any natural hair brushes, I definitely prefer to use for powder rather than creams or liquids, but that's just me. So once I saw how fluffy this was, or felt how fluffy this was, I immediately thought of Sonia G's Worker One. Now this is a smaller brush. The Worker One is a smaller brush. I'd say it's about half the size, and it's, I guess the Worker One's like more rounded, but it comes to sort of the same taper. Now, usually the Worker One fluffs out a little bit more, but I think just the way that I use it, because I usually use it as like a crease brush, its fluffiness doesn't tend to like stick around. But they actually have something of a similar shape from the side and from the front. The Worker One is just more narrow from the front. But I think that they have similarity in terms of the fluff, but even still, Sonia G's Worker One I think is more stiff. And the Wayne Goss E1 has a lot more fluidity to it. I don't know if you can see any of that. It's so hard to show how brushes move on skin in a camera. Like, this is what I always look for in reviews, and it's so hard to find and it's so hard to do. So I'm going to do my best to like explain. I mean, I guess they look the same when I have them glide over my skin like that, but the E1 is definitely has like more fluff and like more give than the Worker One. Worker One, like, you see how that like the whole thing just keeps together. It doesn't really like piece apart. I mean, I guess if I do it with my nail, it does, but just with my finger, it doesn't really want it. It kind of all stays the same, or like it sticks together. Whereas with this one, you can kind of get some fluff going there. I don't know. I don't know if that's a good description, but this is actually a much stiffer brush, whereas the E1 is more fluffy. So it leads me to think about the Rephr 33. Now, I will say, the Rephr 33 is probably, I don't know between the 33 and the 16 which of these is the softest. But for my Rephr brushes, this is either the softest or the second softest. And it's a really nice brush. Doesn't hold a candle to this brush at all. And I think anything that I can think of that you would use the 33 for, you probably use the Wayne Goss for. Now, they do have a different shape from the side, even though from the front, I guess they're not that similar. They have a similar size, I guess, but the Rephr 33 is definitely more tapered from the front. And the Wayne Goss One is more rounded. And then from the side, the 33 is more, it's like it has more fluff in the middle, and then it's really like compressed at the bottom and it tapers at the top. It's a very interesting shape. It has like some squish going on here, But the Wayne Goss has like, it also has squish, but it has a lot more bristle to the brush. Whereas this one really is almost like, I think this is like half the width of the E1 brush. So even though these brushes are actually kind of different, I think of these as probably doing the same things. Now, I probably think that because neither one of these are particularly useful brush shapes to me, but I do really appreciate how soft both of them are. And I really appreciate how soft this one is, but I don't know what I'm going to use it for. So yeah, it's funny. I'm comparing the Wayne Goss E1 to 3 brushes that I'm probably going to declutter. So I did get this set knowing that I would probably get rid of this brush. And that's probably what is going to happen. It's a really lovely brush. I don't think that the shape is going to work for me, but I kind of came into this knowing that. So hopefully that comparison was helpful. I don't think that I'm going to be a helpful reviewer any more than that for this particular brush. But thankfully there are other reviews out there, so I recommend going and watching them. So let's go on to the E2 and E3, and I'm kind of bundling those two together because they're both crease brushes. Now, you know, at the beginning of this video, I did say something about the handles and how I don't like Rephr handles because they don't match my Sonia G brushes. I prefer brushes that have that are shiny all the way through. But like, you see how the Rephr brush just really sticks out because it almost looks like it's a different color because it's matte. It looks like a little bit more gray. And I don't like that. I don't like how that looks next to my Sonia G brushes. And I was kind of afraid that the Wayne Goss one would kind of have the same effect. But if I take this out, do I dislike how this one looks next to these two? I don't love the ferrule next to these two, but I think that the glossy handle makes it still go together. So I don't dislike it. I would probably prefer if this was shiny, but that's just me. I don't think it looks bad. I would prefer shiny ferrule, but I will be fine. I will be fine with the matte ferrule as long as the handle is shiny. All right, so this more than anything reminds me of Sonia G's original Crease One. And you know, it's funny, I didn't realize that these would actually have a different shape. But they do. Sonia G's Crease One doesn't come to nearly as defined of a taper. It's a little bit chubbier. I wouldn't call it rounded. It definitely comes to a taper. And you know what? These feel very similar. Just like the squirrel hair. Oh my god, these do feel similar. Wow. Wow. Yeah, so this brush compares with squirrel hair. This actually does feel like squirrel hair. This feels, the material of these two feels the same. I imagine that that is impacted at least somewhat by the bundling and the shape of the brushes, but I am having trouble telling these apart tactily. Usually I can tell really soft goat hair from squirrel hair because it has more strength in the bristle. And I think that's the only way that you can tell these two apart, but it is very, very faint. So the only way that I can really tell these apart tactily is how this one goes to such a severe taper, like right at the tip. Even though it's a really small tip, I still get that strength from the goat hair. So the tip has less give than the tip of the Sonia G. However, it's not by very much, and I really have to concentrate on it. If you're not concentrating on it, at least on my hand, I haven't used these yet, or well, I haven't used the Wayne Goss brushes yet, but on my hand, on the sensitive parts of my hand, these feel almost the same. These are very difficult to tell apart, which makes me really happy because you can't buy the Sonia G Crease One anymore. I mean, you can't buy any of her older brushes, but you can't buy any of her squirrel hair brushes in particular. And I know this is a very beloved brush, and it's very hard to get your hands on, even if you're willing to pay a lot of money for a secondhand brush. So, man, if you've always wanted this brush, you should really try out the Wayne Goss E2. These are really similar. I didn't realize how similar these were going to be until I tried them out. I'm still really surprised. I'll be honest, like right now I'm thinking about like cutting out this part of the review because I know this is a really beloved brush and I don't want to steer anyone wrong. I don't want to set your expectations incorrectly. So please remember, I'm literally just getting these out of the box. I haven't used them yet. I haven't used these on my eyes. But in the hand, these really do feel similar. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. I'm very happy about that though. I'm very, very happy about that. All right, so what else do I want to compare to? You know, so this is my Rephr 16 brush. This was like my first real crease brush. Before this brush, I really only had the Blender Pro and then also using the Worker One as a crease brush. I think I liked the 16 brush because it was so airy. It has this airiness in like the tip of the brush that's really nice. But it's like a little bit too fat, you know, for my crease. But it's very soft. It's a very nice brush. But I think I'm going to really like the fact that the E3 brush doesn't really have to compress the way that the 16 brush has to compress in my crease, just because of the different shape of the brush. And you know, it's funny, even though the E3 is a bit more of it's a bit more dense. It feels just as soft. And I don't mean the bristle, like this is a softer brush than the 16 brush. But you know the softness that comes from how dense or airy a brush is? Like that softness? Even though this is a denser brush, the E2 feels as soft as a fluffier brush. I hope that makes sense. I'm not talking about the quality of the bristle. I'm talking about the tactile feel of the bristle on my skin. Like how much pressure it is applying to my skin. And it's funny because the E3, I can tell, has a precision to the brush, but it's a precision that doesn't translate to pressure on the skin. I'm not really sure if that makes sense, but that's about as good as I'm going to be able to describe it. This is a very interesting brush, and I already like it way more than my 16. And I like my 16 brush. Don't get me wrong, this is a great brush. But man, I think this is what I need. I have a feeling I'm going to get multiples of this brush. This is nice. Wayne Goss did good. I mean, he always does good with his brushes, right? But this is particularly good. So I wanted to pull out my Blender Pro, which is not meant to be a crease brush. At least definitely not for someone with my eye size and shape. But part of the reason I don't love this brush is because there is a very defined core to this brush that gives it this tip that can give you a lot of precision, but at the same time it can put pressure on the skin. And also I think in a similar way to the 16, I think that the end of this brush is just a little bit too fat for my crease and it has to compress down. And I think that the Wayne Goss 3 is going to be a little bit nicer on my crease because it just doesn't have to compress. But you know what's funny? I feel like I get the same level of precision with these two brushes. And I'm like trying to compare these side by side, and I don't know if this is going to work. but they both have like their tips, you know? There's a tip on both of these that has power to it. But yeah, it's like there's a tip to both of these that has strength and precision. The Wayne Goss one, I think that there's just less bristle in that tip, in that core. So it doesn't put as much pressure on skin as the Sonia G. But honestly, I think the main issue for me is that I just have really hooded eyes, kind of recessed eyes, so my crease is very, very like deep but narrow, you know? So I think that this shape is just going to do real well for me. So I'm excited. I'm really excited for that. Because really the only crease brush that I have right now that I like love is my Sonia G Crease One. And I can't get another one. I'm really surprised I got that one, honestly. And I do like these two brushes. These are great brushes. They're just, my eye shape is just so weird. I don't think I have anything that I really want to say about this brush. I mostly just wanted to compare handles. I don't have anything or wait, no. I guess I can compare the Worker One to the Wayne Goss 4. These are very different brushes, but the Worker One is probably the closest thing I have to the Wayne Goss 4, so probably a good thing I picked up the Wayne Goss 4 because I kind of need this kind of brush. I've been trying to use the Worker One from Sonia G as a laydown brush, and it's just too fluffy for what I want it to do. Like I keep on trying to put metallics down with it, and it's just not made for that. It's just not made for that. So I'll be really interested to see what kind of finish I get with the Wayne Goss 4. This is a lovely brush. So I'm excited because I've been needing that kind of a brush for a while. So E5. E5, I was really hoping it would be, let's just line all of these up. So we got the E5, we got the Rephr 23, we have Sonia G's original pencil one, her goat hair pencil one, and then her pencil pro. Okay, so that's all of the pencil brushes together. Oh, goodness. Okay, that's about as good as I'm going to be able to do. So that's all of these together. And as you can see, the Rephr 23 and Sonia G Pencil, actually all of the pencil brushes look to be more precise than the E5. The E5 is probably closest to the pencil one, the goat hair pencil one. Maybe Pencil Pro. I mean, those two they can be similar. Yeah, so if you're looking for something to replace the Rephr 23, this unfortunately isn't going to be small enough. It just doesn't come to that much of a taper. I'm probably going to see if I can mold this to a bit more of a taper whenever I wash it. But right now, I don't think that I need another rounded pencil brush. I don't consider this to be a particularly detailed pencil brush. I would definitely choose the Rephr 23 and the Sonia G Pencil One, the squirrel hair pencil one, over the E5 for precision uses. I mean, the E5 looks like it would be great for inner corner, or if you're someone with much larger eyes, or if you prefer a really smudged out look, maybe that would work for you. But for me, I don't think that I really needed it in my collection. So unfortunately, that one might not stick around unless I can find a good use for it. So just looks wise, the new pusher liner is like a little bit less wide than the Wayne Goss 8. Looks like it's a little bit thicker this way on its side. But otherwise it's very similar in design. But unfortunately oh wow, yeah, okay, I feel the difference there. So while this brush, the original 8 brush, has like a flow to the bristle, this one has very little flow to it. Like this is almost like a solid surface. And even on like this part of my skin, I can feel a difference. I can feel this almost skipping over my skin because it doesn't flow. It's just like, it's like a solid surface. This is definitely more coarse. And I can't say that I like that. Oh, and I've already gotten the tip of this dirty. Oh well, it was gonna happen. So yeah, I think I'm gonna have to come back on this brush. I am slightly concerned about using this brush. This just seems very pokey, which surprises me. I feel like Wayne Goss does a really good job usually of making very detailed brushes that are very soft, like the Wayne Goss 8 brush. This is incredibly soft. I mean, I still poked myself in the eye with it, but that's my problem. That's not the brush's problem. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I hope that there's like a trick to this brush that I just need to learn. Because I do like the idea of it being stiffer. I don't like the idea of it being pokey, but stiffer and being able to push in color a little bit better. Because I think sometimes I have an issue with the 8 wobbling a little bit when I'm trying to put on liner. So we'll see. I'm going to play around with this one. I really hope I can get it to not poke my eyes though. I hope that this was useful. This is really just unboxing and very first impressions. I'm probably going to have some follow-up videos talking about how I find myself using these brushes, updated impressions, and all of that. If you made it to the end of this, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I hope to see you in the next one. Bye for now.